Bang the gavel.
Wow. All right, I'm doing it anyway for the last time. So I'd like to welcome everyone, call us to order and welcome everyone to the council meeting for October 15th, 2018. And the sun's shining now. It's been a rainy day, but the sun's shining now. And I think that that sort of is putting forth the final days going into the sunset for our final council meeting. So it's nice to see so many out in the gallery this evening. I'd like to, at this point in time, ask for the adoption of the agenda. I would expect the Deputy Mayor would have that one.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor Cooper. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that the content of the council agenda for October 15, 2018 be adopted as presented.
Call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And declarations of pecuniary interest. And I will state that under 12.1, the education development charges, that according to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I will be not participating in that portion, in that motion or staff report. Although I have no real estate involvement nor construction company involvement, I do according to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Anything others? Councillor Madigan.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. I will be stepping away from deputation 6.2 and 7.5 on the consent agenda, as I own and operate a downtown business with a patio in downtown Collingwood, which would fall under the Conflict of Interest Act.
Noted. Others? Yes, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. I'll declare under the Code of Conduct as with respect to 10.2.4, which is Cameron Street School, as my brother is an owner in the property directly across the street to the south. Okay.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Worship. I sort of have a conflict there regarding, I have family that are teachers, therefore.
12.1
Yes.
as well. Okay.
I have stepped away from this before.
Okay, so noted. None further now, and if you do at some point in time, please state that for the record for the clerk. Adoption of the minutes regular meeting of council held September 24th, 2018. Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ecclestone that the minutes of the council meeting held September 24th, 2018 be approved as presented.
Errors or omissions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And business arising from those minutes. Then we will move on, and under community announcements, and I would just like to state, going off into the sunset, that this is my last council meeting after 21 consecutive years. I want to thank the residents for your support over 6 elections, and it's kind of nice to watch as I go through communities, see the various lawn signs and certainly democracy hard at work. It's been an interesting term of council with many community items up for discussion with a focus on some of our municipal assets. We've had new policies in place which are ever evolving, as just like the official plan, ever evolving in that as well. Our town is in good hands with reliable staff within this corporation. I have to say that publicly. We do have great staff that work hard each and every day for our town folks. Thank you to staff for assisting me with staff reports, current information, and I can hardly wait to read a pocket novel just for a change. It's been a long, long time. So all the best in what holds a future for this council and for our town. We're in great hands. So thank you to all. Yes, Councillor Lloyd.
Sorry, Mayor Cooper, but I think I'm thinking about Victoria Annex, and I should declare a conflict there because the purchaser of that property is a developer my son works for, so I'm gonna step out on that.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. Okay, at this point in time then, I am going to call upon Terry Sears and Mark Bryan, the community coordinator and also coach for our Collingwood and area Special Olympic athletes. So, and we have many of them here today, and Special Olympics provides our athletes with far more than just physical benefits of the sport. It changes lives, and I've seen it change many lives, and in fact, the athletes have challenged me, and it's changed my life, and I've enjoyed working with you and having a lot of fun, whether it be ski day or basketball, and showing how poorly I can do, but when we all practice, we can do better. Over the past 40 years, Special Olympics has grown from a modest program serving local athletes to becoming the world's largest movement dedicated to promoting respect, acceptance, inclusion, human dignity for people with all abilities through sport. And I also want to thank you very much for assisting in my golf challenge this summer. A lot of you put your hand out and volunteered and to assist there. And speaking of volunteers, we always need some volunteers. So if I can call upon Mark and Terry to come forward, please, and I have a presentation for you. And if those that can stand, if we can have our athletes stand, please, too. So this year we raised $20,000 for our athletes for all that they can do and being challenged in the future, whether it be summer, all seasons of sports, and this certainly will help in the future. So I just wanted to provide that to you. Thanks, Robin. Got it? Okay, good. We'll get a picture and then I've got the real cash. And that's not going to fit in the bank, so I'll just take it back. However, I do have for the Collingwood District Special Olympics, Mark, congratulations, and for all that you do, and also for the Blue Mountain Special Olympics for the athletes. You're welcome if you want to say a few words.
Well, thank you very much. On behalf of our board of directors and our entire team of volunteers, which is 45, we have 45 volunteers and we now have about 35 athletes that we're working with. Funny enough, when our season starts Sunday, we start our dryland training on Sunday at the National Ski Academy, and we run for 6 weeks, and then back on the hill in January. So I'd just like to thank, first of all, Her Worship and Council for their generous donation once again. Definitely, these funds will go to help us complete our year, our upcoming year, as we have, we're going into a year where we have a provincial competition coming up. And 13 of our athletes were successful in getting a trip to the nationals, or to the provincials rather, which is taking place in Sault Ste. Marie this year. So this will certainly go a long way to help us get them there. Again, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Mark?
Through you, your worship. Again, thank you so much for the generosity. The Mayor's Golf Tournament has always been supportive of Special Olympics, and we're very appreciative of that. Right now we have, aside from the ski team, we also have baseball, basketball, curling, swimming, golf, certainly golf, and right now we're working on track and field to start that up again. Did I miss anyone? Okay, I'm seeing no. So, but again, we certainly put the money to good use, helping with transportation costs, equipment, uniforms, defraying registration fees, and so on. And thank you so much for the support.
Well, thank you very much for volunteering to do what you do in our community, and Robbie and Stephanie, thank you for helping with the Mayor's Golf Tournament, and I hope you're able to help in 2019 again, because you're pros at it now and you do an amazing job, so thank you very much. And you can, go home for dinner, or anyone wishing to stay. Okay, and community announcements, we'll go around the table. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. On Saturday, September 29, I had the pleasure of participating in my friend's house Walk a Mile event, and year 4, I'm getting much better. I don't think I went over my ankles once. Made it around, and they raised $14,629. Their target's $15,000, and they haven't closed down the donations yet. So if you want to assist this important organization in reaching its target, there's still time to go online and make a donation. When I first started on this council, I think my friend's house had to raise $200,000 a year to complement their programs and achieve their services, and that number has now gone up to $400,000. So they're certainly under huge stress, and it's an incredible organization. So I encourage everyone to make a donation. And following up on Mayor Cooper's comments, this is our last council meeting, so I'd like to thank the council members around the table. It's been an interesting and very productive 4 years, in my opinion, and I want to thank you for your participation, and thank the public as well, and also to congratulate the members that are leaving, Councillors Edwards, Lloyd, and Mayor Cooper, after many years of service. Congratulations, and I'm quite sure you'll find ways to fill your time in a much more pleasurable way. But it's been great, thank you very much, and that's it from me.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. I want to express congratulations to Nick and Sue Brindisi and all the other organizers in support of my friend's house. They had their run, Collingwood's half marathon, 10K and 2K kids run on Saturday, October the 6th. Also a big thank you to the over 100 volunteers that assisted. They've taken the time on a busy Thanksgiving weekend. It's another example of the volunteer commitment that we get throughout the community in so many cases. And then to get a running start to Christmas on November 17th in downtown Collingwood. Christmas starts with an all-day celebration featuring the Ho 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 Holiday 5K, reindeer gift specials on Ontario and Simcoe Street, and then the parade, the tree lighting, and the fireworks. And it's just been announced that the Mudmen will finish off the day with a concert in the Simcoe Theatre at 8 p.m. So if you want details on that, you can go to collingwooddowntown.com. I'd also like to take the opportunity to say thank you first and foremost to my family, my wife Lori, my children Michael, Tessa, and Hallie, for their unwavering support over these past 4 years. I couldn't have done this without you. I'd appreciate the trust the Collingwood voters placed back in me in 2014. It's been an exhilarating experience, and I hope that I've been able to at least meet your expectations. To the excellent staff of this municipality and Collis, I did the best job I could for Collingwood because of your expert guidance. To my fellow councillors, I've tried to work together with an open mind throughout our term of office, and I hope I've been successful. Collingwood is truly a tremendous place to live, work, play, and govern. My deepest appreciation and thank you.
Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I had the opportunity to bring greetings to the Sticks and Stones golf and curling marathon, I guess you want to call it, that was put on by Warren Smith and Living Waters. It was so well attended, and so many teams coming in from out of town as well. And all the monies that come out of that are donated to the different charities, and I believe Larry Law is well known for the monies that he's given, especially the $100,000 to the hospital more recently. And that's where the money goes from that tournament to the different charities. Remembrance Day dinner is coming up. I believe it's going to be on us soon, and I believe it's the 10th, which will be the Saturday the 10th, and you can get your tickets at the Legion. And the Remembrance Day Parade, of course, will be on the 11th, on the Sunday. Just in closing, if I can just be given just a couple of minutes, I was going to save it to other business, but this is my last council meeting, unless it's unofficial, and we have to have an official one, I'm not sure, but it's been a great 15 years, and it's really due to the support that I've received from everybody out in the community, and especially my family. They're always sort of up front and center on some of these things when you're on council, so I really want to thank them. I would also like to thank our staff, and I say that because we sit here and we make decisions, and we're not experts at a lot of things. We do our homework, and we do our research, and we make the best decisions possible, but the people behind it are our staff, and truly I don't think I would have been able to perhaps be as successful as I have without their help. So thank you to our staff, and I won't mention individuals, but I mean that right across from the guys that work the snow plows in the winter to our directors that are sitting around us here. So I just want to say thank you. I'm certainly going to miss being here on a Monday night, although maybe I can get a Monday night football game or something coming up, and the Leafs are playing tonight. So anyway, that's I'm sure I'll find something to do, but it's been an honor and a privilege for me, and I want to thank everybody for the great support that I've had. So thank you very much.
Councillor Ecclestone.
Yes, just a couple of items, Mayor Cooper. First, the Back to Business calendar, fall business seminars and networking events has just been released. And the calendar is busy with over 15 events to help companies grow and businesses start up. The calendar organized by the Business Development Center includes networking and educational events such as the Marketing Tune-Up Seminar Series, a TripAdvisor workshop, and the Power Up Your Business Mentorship Program. To view the calendar, go to www.collingwood.business/event-calendar. And on the library front, did you know that this week is Ontario Public Library Week? The Collingwood Public Library is celebrating by waiving fines, but only if you bring a donation to our local food bank. Cans of soup, craft dinner, tuna, and canned vegetables would be in order. And again, thanks to the mayor and the deputy mayor and all the councillors for their hard work and dedication, and to staff, just a great job. I feel we had a very effective term, and I look forward to returning, but that's in the hands of the voters, so thank you very much.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you very much, Mayor Cooper. It was a pleasure for me to stand in for you at the good old 50th anniversary. It was a great celebration. It was a pleasure to hand out some of their staff awards recognizing things like community service. So it was a really excellent night, and I know we can't calculate it, but the economic spin-off of having a business for 50 years, while quite complicated, I'm sure it involves quite a lot of zeros, and we're very appreciative of them being in our community. So there's that, and then going forward for October 27th, just 3 major events happening on the same day. In the morning, you can start with the hospice curling bonspiel. You can, in the evening, do the spirit tour with Home Horizons in support of Barbara Widerhouse, housing youth at risk. And the Collingwood Sports Hall of Fame will be celebrating their inductees, and the ticket sales, I believe, close this Friday, October 19th. And with that, I'd like to thank all of my colleagues on council. This past 4 years have been, they've been a lot of work, and we didn't always agree, but I think that our residents got the best result because of the culmination of all of that. So best wishes to everybody, and thank you for a great 4 years.
Okay, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Digital Main Street program has just launched, giving downtown businesses the opportunity to up their digital impact. This provincially funded program includes a benchmarking survey, training, and hands-on support for online sales. To find out more, come to the information session being held on October 30th. You can register for this free event now. To register, go to eventbrite.ca and search for Digital Main Street. And I'll just add my thanks to staff and to other members of council for this last 4 years. I feel privileged to have worked among you.
Councillor Madigan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Cooper. I'd like to thank Councillor Edwards for mentioning the Remembrance Day. I'm happy to see that somebody did that. And I too would like to echo the Deputy Mayor. I'd like to thank Mayor Cooper for her 21 years. That's a very long time to be on council, and Mike for his 15. But I especially want to thank Councillor Lloyd. I've had a lot of fun with you this term. From every competition that I could possibly get in with you, you've won. From the lawn bowling, you won. From the ice slide race, you won. But what's nice, October 22nd, I will get more votes than you. Thank you very much. Thank you, the public, and thank you very much for everybody. Thank you. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anyway, first of all, how to thrive in a multi-generational workplace is the theme of this fall's Business in Motion. It's featuring Aaron Burry, a national tech commentator and startup tech fanatic. This will be a fast-paced morning with the latest ways to address the regional workforce shortage. The panel discussion afterwards will be equally dynamic, with Aaron joined by leaders from across Ontario, including Tim Krawaluk from Georgian College, Jody Marner from Kitchener's Communitech, and Lisa Stewart from our very own Isowater Clean Tech Company. Space is limited, so register now at businessinmotion.sgb.ca. I'd also like to announce that the ticket sales for the Hall of Fame, the Sports Hall of Fame dinner on October the 27th will be cutting off on October the 19th. So if you haven't got your tickets for that event, it's a great event. It's being held out at the mountain this year. It's a fabulous event, and if you need tickets, get a hold of Jim Malley at Collingwood Golf Course or Blue Mountain Golf Course, and he'll be glad to get tickets for you. So October 19th is the day that closes off. And finally, for me too, it's a sad day in many ways, but I'd like to thank Mayor Cooper for her 21 years. In the last 8 years that I've worked with you, I can honestly say it's been a pleasure to work with you, and I wish you all the best in the future. And to Mike as well. Mike, you've been here a long time. You're a joy to work with, and I thank you for your service. Secondly, I'd like to thank staff and everybody on staff from the directors down. You're an amazing group, and this town is very, very lucky to have you as a working partner and always working in the best interest of this community. Thank you. And thirdly, good luck to members of this council that are rerunning. I wish you all the best. And thirdly, good luck to the new candidates that are running out there. And I believe that everybody should respect and show respect for all those who run for these positions in public office and dedicate themselves to serve their communities. So thank you to everybody. It's been a pleasure. I'll look forward to doing something else, and I'm sure I'll get into something else in the near future. But I'll always be around for any time you want to have a coffee. So we'll see you soon. Bye.
Ms. Almas, I know that Mr. Mr. Amin is way on course at this point in time and unable to be here, but he did send some words of wisdom.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is to members of council. It's on behalf of our CAO, who unfortunately was unable to attend the last meeting, but he wanted me to provide this acknowledgement on your very last regularly scheduled meeting of council. So on behalf of department heads and all staff, thank you for your leadership and support, and I wish those who are or may not be returning all the very best. We've accomplished a lot together and in your term before my arrival. At the staff level, we really appreciate the guidance as we have navigated a number of significant and sometimes challenging initiatives. We will continue to work collaboratively to deliver our best advice and the best services to the people who work, live, play, and manage businesses here in the town of Collingwood. On the occasion of your last meeting for the term of 2014 to 2018, we thank you for your dedication and commitment to your municipality and all the constituents and stakeholders you have served during your tenure. Excuse me, congratulations to all and accept our appreciation.
Thank you. And before we move along, I just want to welcome the past president of Rotary Club in Zihuatanejo, as well as our OPPA, their AGM and conference. I was able to bring greetings this morning out at Blue Mountain, and we welcome them. Also, November 11th, during the evening, I met a couple of times over the past few months with our town crier, and there is going to be a tribute to Battles Over. It's regarding the overseas that will mark the day 100 years ago when the guns fell silent at the end of the First World War. It's a unique series of events in the morning and in the evening, and my understanding is that Collingwood will have such an event in the evening of November 11th at the Cenotaph, and there will be more information come forward at some point in time from our town crier. So thank you, Ken, for taking up that initiative. Also, something that I apologize and will bring forward at this point in time is the acknowledgement of traditional lands. Today we acknowledge that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. We are thankful to share in this special spirit of this place, rich in the energy of Mother Earth, our ancestors, and the love of all creation. Right in front of my eyes. Okay, we'll move on to deputations now, and I'd like to call upon Mr. Kevin Weaver from Georgian College, South Georgian Bay campus, and an update and exciting news on international students that recently I met and welcomed at Georgian. So welcome, Kevin.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Cooper and Council for having me here tonight to spend just a few minutes with you. Certainly Georgian College is proud of our longstanding partnership with the town of Collingwood, and my pleasure to be here tonight to just give you a brief update, not only on the college, but specifically the John DePoche South Georgian Bay campus right here in Collingwood. As folks may know, we have 7 campuses across central Ontario, and ever increasing number of students are joining us from around the globe. 2,500 international students now from over 60 countries. We're about halfway through our current strategic plan. It's a 5-year strategic plan, and what I'm going to focus on really today is the meaningful collaboration pillar. I want to share a story about how we've collaborated with employers in the region to hopefully make an impact. I also want to share with you just the annual impact analysis that we did in 2016-17. This was an impact study based on the South Georgian Bay campus, and you can see the total impact there on the slide. It measured economic impact and cost-benefit analysis for students, taxpayers, and society. And so we feel the campus not only is transforming lives, but also making a very positive economic impact in this community and certainly the entire region. However, we knew we could do even more, and so we worked closely with the community in an effort to address labor shortages, specifically in the tourism sector. Through our campus manager, Lynn Hind, and Lynn has joined us here today, who many of you will certainly know, we helped strategize solutions as part of the South Georgian Bay Tourism Industry Labor Supply Task Force. As you know, two key recommendations of that task force include support for post-secondary tourism programming and attainable housing. And so what we did is we brought a brand new program to the South Georgian Bay campus, following the findings of the task force and also working with our industry partners, researching employment data in the region, partnering specifically with Blue Mountain and Living Waters Resorts. So this fall, we brought 36 students. Our initial target was 40, but happy to report we have 36 students on campus at South Georgian Bay studying in the Hospitality, Hotel and Resort Operations Management program. And we did collaborate directly with those two resorts to make sure that the programming suited their needs and that the students we're bringing to the region will also have plenty of opportunity. So let me tell you about what that opportunity looks like. First of all, the majority of these students came from India under a unique arrangement with our partners, whereby those students had the opportunity to interview for employment. They've obtained part-time jobs at either Blue Mountain or Living Water Resort, and options of on-site accommodations if they so choose. The employer in turn gets students who are in a tourism-focused program. They get work experience while they're studying, or they get students working there while they're studying in that discipline. Those students will have an opportunity to complete their co-op with those employers, and then the hope is after their program completion, full-time work with those industry partners. So we're very proud of this relationship. Mayor Cooper did come and give a personal welcome to these students, and they were very appreciative of that. For all of these students, it's their first time in Canada, and we were pleased to welcome right here in this community, and pleased to report the students are doing very well. We also would like to thank this council because we couldn't have done this program without the extended hours on the transit links. That was critical for this to happen between Collingwood, Blue Mountain, and Wasaga Beach, so we're thankful to that. We're also leveraging a local bus company, Ace Transportation Group, that's taking these students to the Barrie campus for some experiential learning within our campus restaurant there as part of the program. Just show you one of the, this was a social media post. It says yesterday, but that was yesterday at orientation, so it's a few weeks old now. But just sharing the excitement that these students had of being here in our community and at the campus. And certainly we've already started advertising a second intake for this program to begin next fall. We're getting lots of interest, including locally, regionally from our domestic students, as well as students from other countries in the world, including China. As we grow the number of students, we'll also grow the number of local employers we're working with to make this happen. And what's more exciting is that's not all. We're not done there. So that was the first program to come, a unique offering. Next September 2019, provided we have enough eligible students accept our offer, we will offer 2 new programs. One of those is snow resort operations. Again, we base these decisions on the labor market information we have working with our industry partners. The proximity to Blue Mountain and other ski hills simply just makes sense for students and employers. We're also undergoing work to add adventure guide training to the program. Statistics show that recreation, sport, and fitness instruction is the 3rd fastest growing occupation in this region, so we're doing our part to meet that need. The other new program starting next September will be Computer Programmer. This is a 2-year co-op program. Following research and in consultation with our community partners, we learned there's a rapidly growing IT sector in this region, bringing a need for those working in tourism marketing, digital marketing, film, and animation. Again, these industries will provide part-time co-op and future full-time opportunities for our students. Certainly timely with the Digital Main Street announcement. As we become more digital, we're going to need graduates in our communities to be able to handle that work. So we're very pleased to bring that program as well. Combined with the existing offerings, this list you see in front of you shows the continued growth of full-time credential programming at the campus. And if we don't offer a specific program at this campus, certainly Georgian College offers a program that meets the needs from students in the region. Like any organization, we do have to live within our means, so we can't have a welding shop at all our campuses, etc. So we do offer programs though that meet those needs. Last year, for example, 610 full-time students from the town of Collingwood and the rest of South Georgian Bay studied at various programs at Georgian College. We're certainly proud of that. While I focus mostly on full-time programming, I just wanted to highlight some of the other ways that we do bring value to the local community. These programs help people who need assistance to advance employment, apprenticeship, and post-secondary programs. We've been providing free adult upgrading to the community for more than 3 decades now. For the past 10 years, we've been offering dual credit programs that allow high school students to obtain a high school and a college credit at the same time. And we provide workforce development in the region. For example, project management, leadership training, and those are being actively promoted and also delivered to companies within the region. We're also very involved in Georgian's innovation agenda, including work with our Henry Bernick Entrepreneurship Center, Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation, and Center for Applied Research and Innovation. Lynn and other Georgian leaders are part of helping to grow the entrepreneurship ecosystem right here in South Georgian Bay. And Georgian's also very proud to be the first and only college in Canada designated as a Changemaker College by Ashoka U for our role as a leader in social innovation. We are graduating students who can use their Georgian education to positively transform their workplaces, communities, and our world. The South Georgian Bay campus, of course, is part of this, hosting change-making, training, and networking efforts involving our students and our community partners. So there's lots going on at Georgian. There's lots going on at the South Georgian Bay campus. We're proud of the partnership we have with this community. We're proud of the partnership we have with our industry partners in this region. I know it's a lot of information to share in just 10 brief minutes, but certainly we just want to thank Council for the support that you've given Georgian and the support you've given the John DePoche South Georgian Bay campus. We hope we're doing our part to help with the labor shortage, and we'll continue to do so. And if there's time remaining, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, and we do have Lynn Hine as well, Lisa Banks here, so welcome to both of you. Questions, Council? Councillor Edwards.
If I could make just one comment, Your Worship. Many years ago, I sat on the Georgian Bay College Committee, and we put forth a request, if we could, to get a resource and a hotel resource and a ski program here, and it's great to see that finally happening. If you can fit the golf program in too, that would just be great as well. That would just round it all out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a deputation by Mr. Steve Walker, 1858 Caesar Bar, request for extension of patio through winter. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors, Your Worship. So,
Just going to say, Councillor Madigan has stepped away from the table in the chambers. So, go ahead.
Again, thank you. I don't know what's more intimidating when we face the dragons or on Dragons Den or you guys. So,
we don't bite.
I feel this should go smooth though. So we own a new unique Caesar bar located downtown Collingwood. It's the first Caesar bar in Canada, so we're pretty proud of that. We went viral this year online, reaching over 400,000 people. And we're drawing people as far as Montreal, Ottawa, and obviously there's so much more to offer within the community, but we've definitely become a draw. And because of that, and in the current space we're in, very small, very unique and intimate. However, our exterior patio offers for us to allow another 8 people. We feel that giving a unique winter experience for our patrons and our visitors that visit Collingwood, because we're obviously see a lot of visitors at 1858 Caesar Bar, that an extension to have our patio for the winter season would be an asset, not only to us, but also the community in the town. We understand it poses problems, and that's why we're here today with snow removal. Having said that, we're willing to assist with Public Works to remove the snow, whether, I feel that we're also taking on a risk because I don't know how much it'll draw to us. However, we feel, again, it's an asset, and if we pay for the snow removal ourselves or work alongside with Public Works to make it safe and inviting, wheelchair friendly, I believe you all have the agenda with you as well, making it wheelchair friendly, removing the snow. And one of our other business beside us, he is already paying for snow removal to have the snow removed to make it safe for his entryway of his business, which is just beside us. It's just down the street. So again, I had asked that you consider this because we're willing to do what we have to do as business owners. We want to succeed. We want to see more people come to Collingwood. And again, our facts, I don't have a fancy PowerPoint presentation, but everything is online to where how big of a draw we've actually become. And we're proud to say that we've done it in Collingwood, and 1858 is when Collingwood was incorporated, so we're really trying to embrace where we are. So I ask that either, we get the extension or we do a 60-day trial, working together with Public Works. But I can assure you on our end, as business owners, we want it to be, obviously, everybody get in, out, safe, and accessible.
Okay.
That's pretty much about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Thank you.
So further on in the agenda, the consent agenda portion, there is a report and there would be resolutions considered at that point in time. Okay, and who would have the consent agenda?
I have that,
Edwards?
your worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lloyd. Be it resolved that the general consent agenda, having been given due consideration by council, be received. There are 5 items on it this evening, your worship. A letter from Irene Matichuk requesting a traffic signal at Highway 26 at Elliott Street. 7.2, 365 sports event recognizing the whole holiday 5K run, and there is a motion prepared for that this evening, your worship. 7.3 is a Midland correspondence regarding the EDC background study. 7.4 is OPP, Simcoe Municipal District Health Unit, which is hosting the Cannabis Awareness Event, October the 17th. And 7.5 is a request from 18.5 Caesar Bar that we've just heard regarding a winter patio extension request, and there is a resolution prepared for that also, your worship.
Okay, and receiving 1 through 5, all those in favor? That is carried. And looking at, there is 7.2 and 7.5 are 2 of the items to be considered. Are there others as well that individuals would like to have polled? Deputy Mayor.
7.4, please.
Okay, we'll then go at the top, and 7.2, Councillor Edwards, if you have that one, 365 sport events.
Yes, I do, your worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fryer. Be it resolved that the whole holiday 5K run being held November the 17th in conjunction with the downtown Collingwood Christmas Starts in Collingwood events be designated as a municipally significant event for the purposes of a special occasion permit application. And I know this last year, I believe there are a lot of Santa Clauses running in this one.
There were a lot out on the street.
I wish they don't pull me a gift.
I have a question for Mr. Ridlow perhaps, and if others have questions, Martin, could you come forward, please? So we have had events that are third party in our downtown core. And I understand that some of the businesses in the downtown core didn't embrace all of those. And I'm just wondering the support here, the comments here, if you've heard anything. I know you're not BIA, but in the same building.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. So we're aware that particularly this year, there were a number of events where there were some challenges, and there's a broader review that's going on right now with various departments, with the BI and so on, to really figure out which ones are working, which ones are not, so that we can quickly adjust and move forward. Based on feedback we had from last year's Ho 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 5K run, it was our first year. There was some feedback in terms of, should dogs be allowed or not, tripping hazards, but overall the response was very positive because it got people into the downtown and then circulating through to the various businesses, and they tried to minimize the amount of time that the key streets were partially closed, so that there really was a limit to the impact it had. There were some concerns about the runners leaving the coned areas along the side of the road, so once again they're working with the OPP, PRC, event staff and so on to address that. So in this case in particular, we're feeling confident that 365 Sports, and they've been working with us phenomenally. It's really been a neat joint effort that has been going on for several months, are doing the right things to ensure we have success. Just early on, observations that we have from previous events that have happened this year, where there was perhaps some broader feedback that wasn't as encouraging, was the fact that for the downtown, it is one of our fantastic resources, and we have to be prepared to work very closely with those organizers to make sure that they're doing the right stuff, and at the end of the day, this is property that the taxpayers and the town owns. So taking an active involvement in the preparation of those events are some of the early learnings we're gathering. We're certainly applying them into both the Ho 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 5K run and of course the hometown hockey event that's coming on during Frozen in Time Festival.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Fryer?
Just through you to Martin, I appreciate the question because I had noted in the minutes of the BIA that concern that had been raised, and the BIA wanted to participate a little bit more fully in third-party events, so it's good to know that that's happening.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then on the motion, I will call the vote. All those in favor? It is carried. Okay, and the other is, we'll just go in order then. 7.4, OPP and Simcoe, Municipal District Health Unit, hosting cannabis awareness event October 17th. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. As people are aware, August 17 is the date that cannabis will become legal in Ontario and Canada. And certainly there's been many questions about the transition and how the legislation is going to impact our community as well as other municipalities throughout the province. We will be receiving a staff report later today in this meeting, and for those that have read it, it's not a simple topic. There's much to still be done in terms of the legislative framework and the regulatory pattern. So we have a decision at this council table to make before January 22nd of this year, whether or not we opt in or out of the private retail sales. But I would certainly encourage members of the community to get out to this session. It will be informative. I am a member of the Simcoe Municipal District Health Unit, and there's concerns from that end as well as the policing end, but I think it's important people get out and understand the facts because I imagine we will be having our own community engagement process, and it will be helpful for our residents when that time comes. And as well, I'm hearing there'll be free brownies that night, so.
And that is October 17th, not August 17th.
Oh, sorry. October 17th, and it's at the Leader Time Club. See you.
Linking in this.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and next is 7.5, 1858 Caesar Bar Winter Patio Extension, and there is a resolution prepared for that.
Yes, Your Worship, there are actually two, so I'll read the first. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ecclestone. Be it resolved, the Council hereby grants an exemption from bylaw number 2011-030 to permit 1858 Caesar Bar to operate and maintain its sidewalk patio at its location directly adjacent to 159 New Ontario Street year-round, subject to conditions specific to snow removal, sidewalk maintenance, and liability. First,
Questions, comments, Council? Councillor Doherty?
Thank you, Worship. I would like to propose that we defer this motion for this evening, if I could have the support of council. And the reason why I'm suggesting that is because, as the proponents have said, perhaps there may be an opportunity to look at this on a test basis. And so I would like to request that perhaps the proponent and the BIA, who have not been involved in this conversation thus far, and staff, take a look at the possibility of doing it on a test basis. Certainly the notion of animation for downtown during the winter, where normally there is not a lot going on the sidewalks, may have some merit. I just think that spending a little bit more time looking at it and the pros and cons may be well worthwhile before we make a decision.
Councillor Lloyd?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, a couple of questions. What are the current dates for cutoff for patios and installation of patios? Through you to Brian.
October 31st.
Right.
October 31st.
October 31st.
And in the spring, it's
1st of April.
1st of April. I kind of agree with Councillor Doherty, and perhaps within that review, we could take a look at, is there a possibility of extending those periods maybe till the end of November or even into mid-December before the real onslaught of snow comes, and perhaps a little earlier in the season as well. So there's a couple of alternatives. And also it might be wise if we looked at that if we do give some sort of extension, that the patios have to be against the building rather than against the road. That's another alternative.
Okay, I'll come back to you on that. Anything further, council? Before I ask for a deferral, Councillor Jeffrey?
If we're not doing the deferral right now.
I haven't looked for a seconder yet.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I like this idea, and I like the idea of a test and an extension conditional on those safety aspects being met. I think it could feed further down the road into that other work that Councillor Doherty, Councillor Lloyd speak of. But I think to defer it, I'm not sure what else we would come up with in terms of knowing anything more than what we know right now. I like the idea, and I like giving it a chance just to test it and see how it goes, on the condition that if we can't meet those safety standards, then that would have to be ended.
Councillor Eric Costone.
I'd be prepared to give them an extension until year end and just see how it goes. If they can do a job at carrying all the ice and snow and put salt out and everything, I think it may work. That's what I would be prepared to do.
Okay, Councillor Doherty, you have suggested a deferral.
Yes, and the reason why I was suggesting a deferral, although maybe there's an opportunity for us to reword the motion as it is, was because the final iteration of what it looks like might be a little bit different than what we see in the summertime. As an example, Councillor Lloyd has suggested that perhaps it's against the wall as opposed to out to the opposite end of the sidewalk. Another idea may be that it doesn't have the fencing around it so that the tables can be moved entirely in advance of a snow event, when we know a snow event is coming or when we know that the sidewalk needs to be cleared, just as an example. And I find that the motion as it is right now is a little limiting.
A seconder for deferral. Councillor Lloyd. Okay, there's no discussion with the deferrals, then I'll call the vote on the deferral. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, and it is a deferral. And So if you could provide the further information to the clerk that you would like to see then included in some conversation back and forth. You've mentioned about the location of the patio, trial period. Okay, Ms. Ellis.
Sorry, through your worship to members of council, we don't have another council meeting. So to defer it, knowing that the proponents would have to remove their patio on October 31st unless it's authorized. So I request that maybe if that's what council would like to consider, that we actually amend the motion to say subject to conditions specific to snow removal, sidewalk maintenance, and liability for a trial season, subject to delegated authority to the CAO to set the required conditions in consultation with the Director of Public Works and Engineering. Something along that lines, so then the CAO would have the authority to demand requirements, and if the property owner could not meet the requirements, then it would not happen.
Oh, that sounds good, but I'll look back to Councillor Doherty. And first of all, if you would like to, if you would like to consider that and then remove your deferral, going through procedurally.
Thank you, yes, as a mover of the deferral, I would accept that as alternate wording to the motion in front of us then.
And Councillor Lloyd?
Absolutely.
Okay, so motion to rescind then this entirety. The motion as before us hereby grant an exemption from bylaw 2011-030 to permit 1858 Caesar Bar to operate and maintain a sidewalk patio at its location directly adjacent to 159 here Ontario Street year-round, subject to conditions specific to snow removal, sidewalk maintenance, and liability. So we are going to rescind that, and we need to vote with the mover and seconder here. So Councillor Edwards and Councillor Ecclestone, perhaps. So you're comfortable with that as mover and seconder?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I'll the vote on that one to rescind. All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. And then the clerk will then do something there, Sarah, for us.
Certainly, through your worship to members of council, the motion would be worded similar to this, without being deferred, but saying that it's subject to delegated authority to the CAO to set the required conditions in consultation with the Director of Public Works and Engineering.
Okay, Councillor Doherty,
So I will move that then.
Councillor Lloyd,
Can
Yeah.
I suggest something on that?
go ahead.
Do we want to include the BIA as well, discussion with, because I think that's important.
And include the BIA. You're both comfortable with that?
Yep.
Further discussion? Councillor Fryer?
So just for clarification, essentially what we're doing is deferring our decision to the delegated authority of the CAO. So instead of just deferring as a council with the problem of not a future council meeting coming up, the CAO, through his delegated authority from our bylaw in July, can make that decision.
That is,
This falls outside of that delegated authority, so that's why you have to specifically do that there, because there's only 4 reasons.
Thank you very much. That was the clarification I was getting, so.
Yeah.
and we have, being here for so long, I guess we have done that before as well, dealing with patio matters. On that note then, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Madigan can return to the chambers. And the walkers, you're welcome to stay. And if you have a business to run, you're more than welcome to leave.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, looking at reports and minutes of other committees and boards, library, and who would have that?
I have that, Mayor Cooper. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Doherty. Be it resolved that the following board minutes be received and recommendations therein approved. Collingwood Public Library Board minutes, September 27th, 2018. and Police Services Board minutes, September 24, 2015.
Questions, comments, council? I'll call. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Just, I noted in the police services report, 8.1.2, under item 9, it referred to an anticipated increase for 2019 of $100,000. And I just wanted, if I could ask through yourself to the treasurer, just, is that a normal size of increase or thereabouts, if you could find out?
Ms. Leonard?
Through you, your worship, it is probably the first increase that we've had since the OPP went to the new billing model. I believe last year was something like $23,000, so this is the first major increase since 2014.
Mayor Cooper, just to follow up, and Marjorie, do you have a rough idea on what the total budget is there?
$5,028,000.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Okay. On that note, I will call the vote then. All those in favor? That is carried, thank you. And moving on to Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee from October 1st. And we have the BIA minutes and Museum Advisory as well as Trails. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lloyd. Be it resolved that the following board and committee minutes are hereby received. Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes, September 13th, 2018. Museum Advisory Committee minutes, September 20th, 2018. And Trails Advisory Committee minutes, September 13th, 2018.
Questions, comments? I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, and next staff reports, HR 2018-05, personal emergency leave. Councillor Doherty.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fryer. Be it resolved that Council receives staff report HR 2018-05 and approve expanding the provisions of policy C-03 short-term income protection plan to cover personal emergency leave within the parameters outlined in this report.
Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. Through you, I guess to Marjorie or Sarah. Just wanting to confirm, there's two options that are set out in the report, and I'm assuming that it's the first option that was provide the increasing paid leave entitlements by expanding it to the sick leave option policy to allow up to 2 days to be used for the illness, injury, and medical emergency.
Ms. McQuaig.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see Melissa
And it's
there.
an HR report, so.
Hiding in the background, right behind August 17th.
Welcome, Melissa.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship. To the Deputy Mayor, the wording that you see in the report would actually be what would be amended. Sorry, so it's the first under the analysis part?
Yes.
Is that what you were looking for? So currently the town does allow for paid leave for the first part, which is personal illness, injury, or medical emergency of an employee. What we're looking to do is expand it for the second part, which is an urgent matter relating to family members.
Right, and I guess it just said another option is, and then it says that there's nominal impact on salary budget, so I just want to make sure that I'm voting for the right option here. We're doing the first option as opposed to the second option. I'm just looking at the bottom of page 44.
Sorry, that is correct.
Okay, good, thank you for the clarification.
Other questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Melissa. Okay, next, HR 2018-06, revisions to policy 5.05, salary admin program. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lloyd. Be it resolved that Council receives staff report HR 2018-06 and approve policy C-05, salary administration program as presented.
Questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And next is FS 2018-03 Fire Dispatch Service Agreement. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fryer. Be it resolved that Council receive staff report FS 2018-03 and approve the provisions that the town of Collingwood continue to receive dispatch services from the City of Barrie Fire and Emergency Services.
And there are no changes from the previous agreement. Questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And standing committee report, CorpCom 2018-08.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ecclestone. Be it resolved that Council receive the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee Report, CC 2018-08, from its meeting held October 1st, 2018, as presented.
Councillor Doherty, anything further to add?
No, Your Worship. The only other item that was covered under economic development was having to do with announcements of upcoming events targeted to small entrepreneurial businesses during the month of November.
Thank you. Questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next, we have Development and Operations Services Standing Committee from October 10th, and that would be Councillor Madigan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Cooper. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that the following minutes be received: Collingwood Heritage Committee minutes, September 19th, 2018.
Questions, comments? Call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And the next is staff report, P 2018-31, proposed zoning bylaw amendment, Simcoe Housing Corporation additional uses. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that Council receive staff report P 2018-31 and enact and pass an amending zoning bylaw to permit a life skills center and a school as additional uses in the residential 4th density exception 7 R4-7, specifically on the ground floor of the affordable housing building addressed as 485 2nd Street.
Questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And then bylaw 2018-083, Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2018-083 being a bylaw under the provision of section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, as amended, be enacted and passed this 15th day of October 2018, life skills / school at county affordable housing.
Call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And next we have P 2018-32 part lot control exemption bylaw on Riverside Collins Street. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that Council receive staff report P 2018-32 and enact and pass a part lot control exemption bylaw to allow for 12 lots to be created within blocks 11 and 12 of registered plan 51M-1124.
Questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And bylaw number 2018-084, Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2018-084 being a bylaw to to exempt a portion of land from part lot control provisions of the Planning Act be enacted and passed this 15th day of October 2018, Riverside.
Call the vote, all those in favor? That is carried. And next we have P 2018-33, Helen Court Homes, extension of draft approval for plan of subdivision, Trails of Collingwood. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that council receive staff report P 2018-33 and extend the draft approval for the proposed Trails of Collingwood plan of subdivision for a further year, till October 20th, 2018.
Ms. Fair, can you give an explanation? This has been a long-standing plan of subdivision, and we're looking to extend it for one more year.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. Happy to do so. What is happening, and the reason that we are extending this for one more year is because there is some soil remediation that needs to be done on this property. There's testing currently ongoing, and what we are currently doing is trying to come up with an appropriate strategy on what to do with the impacted soils of the property. There will be a revised plan that will be coming before the next council once we determine the best strategy for dealing with these impacted soils.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Doherty?
Thank you, Worship. This original application was made when? Through you to Director Farrer?
Thank you, and I believe, it's probably
2008,
10 years ago, something like that. Thank you. Through you to Councillor Doherty. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am becoming increasingly concerned about extending draft approval over these many years. However, in this case, because this is not a significant change from the original application back in 2008, I will support it.
Thank you. Are there questions, comments? Councillor Madigan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Cooper. This one brought out a lot of questions that evening. Councillor Edwards asked if there was going to, in regards to another public meeting for the impacted soils, which was followed up. You asked a question of how long it had been on, but Deputy Mayor asked a question of what efforts will be taken for remediation of this land with the affected soils. And not to put words in her mouth, but Ms. Farrer did say that a peer review is not out of the question because we do not have an expert on staff. So would that be something through you, Mayor Cooper, to Ms. Farrer that we would be looking at on this one?
Ms. Farrer?
Thank you to Mayor Cooper and Councillor Madigan. Yes, we are doing peer review studies on this one, and we are, as Councillor Madigan has said, the reason that we are doing those studies and that we need to have other experts look at this is because we do not have the on staff the experts who are able to review these soils analysis and come up with what is an appropriate strategy for impacted soils. So we are certainly getting some help. Unfortunately, in some cases, these developments do go on and on and on and on. This one certainly ran into a few hiccups, which they weren't expecting at the beginning, let's be honest. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Councillor Edwards?
Thank you, Worship. And there will be a public meeting, I understand, prior to presentation of the next.
Through Mayor Cooper to Councillor Edwards, yes, there will be a further public meeting because the zoning is going to have to be amended, and so that will be coming back to the public. I can't tell you when yet, but it'll be next year at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, thank you, Nancy.
Okay, we'll call the vote then. All those in favor? That is carried. And next we have P 2018-34, authorization bylaw to execute site plan control agreement for Cameron Street Public School. Councillor Madigan.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that Council receive staff report P 2018-34 and enact and pass an authorization bylaw to execute a site plan control agreement for an expansion to Cameron Street Public School, 575 Cameron Street.
Councillor Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper, and just through yourself to Director McDonald, I was just gonna ask for clarification. I believe this is, I noted in the report from the meeting, a reference to the Birch Street open ditch remediation not being included. I just wondered if I could get a clarification of how that relates to the whole site plan agreement arrangements.
Mr. McDonald.
Through your worship, that was a question that was raised. The Birch Street ditch is not part of this application. The school is looking at a site plan that does not include Birch Street. Birch Street's an open ditch, and the concern is that it's an open ditch next to the sidewalk. It's on the public road. That's not part of this application.
Just to follow up, so that's something though that staff are monitoring or keeping
ongoing.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lloyd, did you have your hand raised?
I was just questioning, I thought Councillor Edwards' son, but I may be wrong. You would call a conflict on this one?
No.
No.
Okay,
No,
thank you,
I
I apologize. Your son taught there.
Thanks for thinking of me.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. Just through you to Brian. Brian, can you just confirm that this expansion to the Cameron Street School will also assist in improving the safety for the drop-offs and kiss and ride for the kids at the school when it's completed? It's been an issue that's dogged us for quite a while, and just wanted to confirm that's the case.
Mr. McDonald.
I can confirm, yes, they have included a drop-off. They're going to be looking at modifications to the parking on Cameron Street to allow for angle parking that's different than what it is there now, and that will be done in the next as part of this application, but they've asked for it to be done in phases, and it will be part of the second phase, which is in the following year.
Good, thank you very much.
On that note, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And next we have the bylaw 2018-085. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2018-085, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the site plan control agreement for the expansion of Cameron Street Public School, be enacted and passed this 15th day of October 2018.
Call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried, and we can have Councillor Jeffrey return. And congratulations to the Cameron Street Comets on their expansion. Next, we have PW 2018-14, Assumption of Mayor Mills Estate Subdivision Phases 2 and 3. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that Council receive staff report PW 2018-14 and approve the assumption of all municipal works within phases 2 and 3 of Mayor Mills Estate subdivision, and that council enact and pass a bylaw to assume the roads and infrastructure within the Mayor Mills Estate subdivision.
Questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And next we have bylaw 2018-086. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2018-086, being a bylaw to assume and dedicate certain highways and municipal services within Mayor Mills Estate subdivision phases 2 and 3, be enacted and passed this 15th day of October 2018.
I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, and next is PW 2018-15, Van Dolders Subdivision Agreement. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that council receive staff report PW 2018-15 and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the Van Dolder subdivision agreement by passing and authorizing bylaw subject to staff receiving the remaining securities.
Questions? I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And next we have the bylaw 2018-087. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2018-087, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the subdivision agreement for Ventoller's Industrial Subdivision, be enacted and passed this 15th day of October 2018.
Questions? I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And next, PW 2018-16, adoption of pedestrian crosswalk policy. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that Council receive staff report PW 2018-16 and adopt the Town of Collingwood pedestrian crosswalk policy dated October 2018, and that Council delegate authority to the Director of Public Works and Engineering to approve or reject requests based on the adopted pedestrian crosswalk policy.
Questions, comments? Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Worship. Based on the number of times that we have recently had discussions about crosswalks, availabilities of crosswalks or lack thereof, I'm sure that people will be happy to hear that we are entertaining this staff report tonight. I do have a question specific to the crossovers that are currently exist on in downtown Collingwood on Main Street. There's one in front of Town Hall here. There are the slightly raised bricked crossovers. And then there's another one farther up the street. And my question has to do with the signage on those crossovers that indicate that pedestrians should yield to automobiles. And I want to direct a question to the Director of Public Works. If we could investigate that policy, that signage for those crossovers, because having looked at Book 15, the clear message from the ministry is that there needs to be consistency and clear expectation as to how crossovers work. And when we have something that looks like a legitimate pedestrian crossing with a message that it says, sorry?
If we can bring that under other business, because we're looking at the crosswalk policy, and then if you wouldn't mind bringing that forward under other business, and we can perhaps request further follow-up on that.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a list.
What was
Deputy
directed
Mayor.
to that procedurally?
Okay.
I did bring that matter up at the committee and asked the question. I think it's contained in the context of our report, and I think it would be suitable for now as opposed to under other business, because the answer I got was specifically the 200-meter notice required within Book 15 negated our ability to put the pedestrian first at those crosswalks mid-block on the downtown.
Mr. McDonald, can you help us on this one, please?
Certainly, Your Worship. That is correct. Those mid-block crossings are within 100 meters of a signalized intersection in both directions. In accordance with the Book 15, they do not qualify as a pedestrian crossover, and I think the question is with respect to signage and it being consistent within the Book 15, and we certainly can look at that. The intent of those crossovers as they weren't officially crosswalks because they didn't meet the crosswalk policy at the time, and they were kind of a courtesy crossing to allow pedestrians mid-block to cross.
Okay, yes, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Worship. I do appreciate the clarification about whether they're legitimate crossovers or not. However, in the paradigm that's presented in this staff report, it clearly indicates that the crossover can be within 200 meters of a signalized crossing if the traffic, the vehicle or pedestrian traffic is in excess of a particular number, and my guess is for downtown Collingwood it would certainly be in excess of those numbers. Anyway, not to be argumentative, but I think we should have a look at it.
So noted. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. Through you to Brian. This is certainly good news. We've had lots of discussion about our growth pressures and traffic and pedestrian safety, and I know down at the county there's been a number of discussions. When signal lights aren't justified or called for under the MTO requirements, pedestrian crosswalks are a way around that. I was wondering, if you could just give us an idea of the type of considerations or math that go into the placement of a crosswalk, and does that impact the type of crosswalks? And just so we have a general idea, I think, for the public of how this new policy is going to affect us moving forward.
Certainly, the new Book 15 lays out a matrix in terms of making decisions. They include both pedestrian as well as vehicle traffic, number of lanes to cross. There are a number of different crosswalks that can be considered. They're new, they're different than a typical crossover, the big yellow X sign. Some are just a simple sign, some are a sign with a light, and it all depends on the matrix of the crossing in terms of number of vehicles, pedestrians, etc. So there is part of this report, there is a requirement for pedestrian or for public awareness of the new crossings, because we plan on putting one in on here Ontario Street at Hamilton Drain that's consistent with the new provincial signage. And we will be including it in regularly in the paper before it goes, and some other avenues to make the public aware of these new crosswalk signs and crosswalks.
Good, thank you very much, Brian.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper, and through you, and some of this has been covered. I had going to make the comment that this was an excellent staff report, and Mr. Velik's presentation at the committee was very helpful, responded to questions from the committee members and such. I had noted about, I was pleased to see that Niagara Street was going to be considered, even though it does require ministry approval and has to meet the warrants. It'll be based on our professional resources in their analysis of things. And I believe this is correct, that the projection is for the crosswalk that the director just spoke of at Your Ontario and Hamilton Drain. It's into the spring of next year now. I think originally it had been hoped for sooner, but as was spoken to with the new signage and that, it was felt to be better going forward. So perhaps I just get clarification from the director that it is planned for next year.
Mr. McDonald.
That's correct. It's part of this year's budget, but due to a number of workload issues, that it's most likely not going to happen this year.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote then. All those in favor? That is carried. And next we have Standing Committee Report, DVT 2018-08, Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that Council receive the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee Report, DevT 2018-08, from its meeting held October 10th, 2018, as presented.
Councillor Madigan.
Yeah, if there's, if we could get an update, please, and thank you, with regards through you to anyone who could answer this, through regards to the Eden Oak deputation that we had. That would be greatly appreciated. We have a lot of people tonight in the audience from that area, and it would be nice to give them an answer that they deserve.
Mr. McDonald.
Through you, Your Worship, a letter was sent out to Eden Oak late on Friday that included a number of issues that we would like them to respond to. We have had discussions with them today, and they're now working on that and will respond back to us.
Yep. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Just with respect to this item, it's a really important one, and I know this is our last regular meeting of council, but if I could ask through you to the clerk just to confirm that this council can meet at a special meeting of council anytime until its term formally ends.
I can answer that, yes, that is correct.
Okay, so I'm wondering about requesting a staff report to come to council in a manner that the clerk will suggest. But I'm suggesting it would probably be to a special meeting of council so that we can make sure that we stay on top of this matter if needed. I mean, if it goes along smoothly and no further input from council is required, that's great. But I think that we need the residents of that area to know that we have that capability and we firmly intend to use it if we have to.
So the items that you would like to see in the staff report?
Staff report would,
Deputy Mayor has it?
no.
Okay, I just wondered back and forth.
No, I don't, the staff report would be not a letter, but would be the response to the letter. I think the next steps in terms of where we get to when they get back to us as well, when the developers get back to us.
So a letter has
The clerk may have a better wording for that, but, as she always does.
The other, while we're waiting for something for council's consideration, if there are other comments, questions to be included, Councillor Madigan.
Thank you very much. I would graciously like to maybe get the questions answered, the 4 items that were brought to our attention on that day. I believe some promises were made by Eden Oak and on a time limit, and they've passed. And I would also like, as part of that staff report, as I brought up on an earlier item, that if we don't have an expert on staff, maybe a peer review wouldn't be out of the question.
Do you have the list of the 4 items, Councillor Madigan?
I just handed it through to the clerk when.
Oh, it's in
Levi can read them off if you want.
I think then I have it here. Independent engineering for drainage and flooding issues. Independent arborist hired by the town to review the stress trees and mature trees. Winter care plan regarding site development issues through the winter, including dust and erosion control, and completion of permanent fence to replace the silt temporary fence. So those are the items that are being considered. At least they're in the minutes from development and operations. Ms. Ellis?
Certainly procedurally through the mayor to members of council. Council will have to dispose of the resolution that's currently on the floor regarding receiving the staff report, but after that has been received, we can put together a motion that would read something along the lines as the council hearing request a staff report regarding the outstanding concerns from the deputation received at the Development and Operations Standing Committee meeting regarding the Eden Oak development, and that a special meeting of council be held if required to deal with the matter before the end of the term, the council term, I will include.
Councillor Jeffrey?
I would move that. I think that's an excellent wording.
So the first is Councillor Madigan and Deputy Mayor that council received the Development Operations Services Standing Committee report from its meeting held October 10th, 2018 as presented. So I'll call the vote in that. All those in favor? That is carried. And then moved by Councillor Jeffrey, seconded by Councillor Doherty. And you heard the motion, or would you like it read again, one more time? Councillor Fryer?
I wasn't looking to have it read, I was going to make a couple of clarifications if I could.
Ahead.
Is this another case of where the delegated authority to the CAO needs to be enhanced upon? I'm just getting clarification from the delegation we provided in July as to now. I understand that we're going to meet as a council, but the way I was looking at it is the CAO could make a decision on this if he had to, if there was something that was to his concern.
Ms. Almas?
Well, I can certainly call up the provisions in which that delegated authority has been approved. It is in accordance with the Municipal Act, and it's very specific to certain areas, including the hiring and firing of officers, expenditures in excess of $50,000 outside of the budget, any disposition of property. There's 4 specific areas, and I'm not sure that this would actually fall within that.
So this would definitely enhance it to the point that he has that if council doesn't meet.
Ms. Almas, I understand it's not included in the items.
Okay, so, but we're anticipating on meeting, and that's the reason why, okay. So the other, in regards to the 4 items that have been requested, this would be a revisiting of the peer review because, as we heard earlier in regards to the Helen Court, generally, there's peer review done in the initial stages. So I'm assuming that that's just going to be a review of that and making sure that anything that was from those peer reviews is still appropriate.
Brian?
I look to direction. We certainly have it peer reviewed by an engineering firm and the arborist. We do have an engineering firm with an arborist that do the peer review on both those issues.
Thank you.
Ms. Almas?
Certainly, through yourself to council, if the thought would be entertained to add on to this motion that if there is a matter that could be delegated to the CAO, that he would have council's full approval to do that. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not sure if that would work with this.
If I may, Mayor Cooper, I wasn't looking for that. I'm comfortable with the fact that we're planning on getting together again on this.
We could.
Yeah, we could. Yeah.
Could. Councillor Lloyd?
Thank you, Mercer. Just a clarification through you to Brian. Brian, are you saying there was a peer review in the engineering for the drainage plus a peer review for the other issue?
Mr. McDonald?
The arborist? Already been done?
For this particular application, we had an engineering consultant's review, first, second, and third submission, as well as we have our own landscape architect is a peer review. We do not have in-house landscape architect, and they peer reviewed as well as attended the site on a number of occasions to look at the various trees. We will look to have their arborist report back, and depending on the results, we can have our arborist peer review those results that they come back with.
So I would guess that all those findings would be included in your staff report.
They would be.
Okay, on that note then, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. Moving on then to staff reports. Those of you in the audience that were only here for this one item, you certainly are welcome to leave and we'd love to see you stay and keep the seats warm. Okay, good night. Next, staff report, C 2018-18, understanding legalization of cannabis and seeking public input regarding cannabis retail outlets. I'd like to ask the clerk to, this point in time, to make a presentation, please.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. So this has been a very large encompassing piece of legislation that is changing the shape of numerous areas across the country. So what I'll touch on tonight is some of the areas that are very important for our community to be aware of, understanding again that the OPP is hosting a session with the health unit on Wednesday, which I'll again provide the details for, as well as the municipal impacts and what this council needs to consider from a policy perspective in moving forward as this becomes legalized. So this presentation this evening is going to be a combination of input from my various colleagues within the various components that affect their portfolios. So we're going to include key federal and provincial cannabis laws, rules for the workplace, cannabis retail outlets, enforcement, signage, promotion and sponsorship, authority to regulate, monitoring, and then looking at the recommendations that we're proposing for council's consideration this evening. So some of the key laws that will be in place as of October the 17th, knowing that this has been an ever-evolving piece of legislation, again with a Bill 36 being put in place or presented for first reading on September 27th of 2018, which changed significantly a number of these areas that we're going to be discussing this evening. So this is a very timely report in light of those discussions that are being had at the provincial level. So the minimum age for consumption is 19, so you need to be 19 or older to buy, use, possess, or grow recreational cannabis. This is the same minimum age for the sale of tobacco and alcohol in Ontario. So consumption laws, consumption rules are to be aligned with the tobacco places for use under the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. And again, this is again under the proposed legislation. So this is pretty significant for municipalities. So individuals are will be able to consume or vape cannabis in public areas that are currently provided for within the Smoke-Free Ontario Act legislation. However, municipalities, and I'll get into this later when we talk about the regulations, whether this is something that this council would like to look at to expand those areas. So for example, we were one of the forerunners regarding the tobacco legislation a number of years ago, in which we were the first to actually regulate prohibiting the use of tobacco in and around playing areas. We could do something similar to this that would expand it into other areas that are currently not regulated under the Smoke-Free Ontario legislation. Driving, so using cannabis in driving will be illegal if you're impaired. And so this has been conversations that have been had at the Police Services Board. I've recently been able to be in touch with both our staff sergeant and our detachment commander. So the province has provided a certain amount of funding for training that's happened, and what will happen if you receive a roadside sobriety test. It must be from a trained officer at that point. If they believe that you could be impaired through cannabis or alcohol, then that person would immediately be taken to a drug recognition expert officer, and then from there that drug recognition officer would be able to make a decision on whether urine screening would also need to be required, or whether the individual could be charged and potentially arrested at that point. So again, all those details are becoming known and will be presented at the cannabis presentation that the OPP and the health unit are providing on Wednesday evening. So again, it is zero tolerance though for young, novice and commercial drivers. Where you can buy recreational cannabis. When it's legal, people over 19 years of age are able to purchase cannabis online through the Ontario Cannabis Store. So again, Ontarians can only purchase it from the Ontario Cannabis Retail Outlet. It can only be purchased online at this time. This is what we'll get into later in the discussion because the new regulations are looking at allowing retail outlets in municipalities that choose to allow retail outlets in their municipality as of April the 1st, 2019. Okay, the current amount of cannabis that can be possessed at any time is a maximum of 30 grams, which is about 1 ounce of dried cannabis in any public place that's in your possession. In growing cannabis, individuals, residents will be able to grow up to 4 plants per resident, and it's not per person. So those are other key pieces of the legislation that our residents should be aware of. Rules for cannabis in the workplace. So there is specific areas for employers and supervisors to be aware of. They need to know the rules of medical cannabis and will be required to address workplace hazards under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And employees and workers who are unable or unfit to work safely could be a hazard to themselves or others in the workplace and will have to report that information to their employer under the Ontario Health and Safety Act. And what I'll do at this point, I'd like to call upon our HR manager, Melissa McQuaig, if she would like to come up and let council know what the town of Collingwood is doing in this regard.
Thank you. Ms. McQuaig.
Thank you. So as the clerk mentioned, consuming recreational cannabis in the workplace is currently illegal and will continue to be illegal even after October 17th of 2018. I think from an employment standpoint, what we need to know is employers still have the responsibility to provide a safe workplace for their workers. Employees still have the responsibility to perform their work safely and refrain from using any alcohol or non-prescribed drugs during working hours. From an employment perspective, we are looking at a draft substance use policy, and that's being worked with the Joint Health and Safety Committee. So that policy, in addition to alcohol, legal and illegal drugs, will speak to municipal and recreational cannabis use, including impairment in the workplace, reporting fit for duty, accommodation of disabilities, human rights, progressive discipline, and we will also be providing education and training for our staff and supervisors on the policy and the state of cannabis in the workplace.
Thank you. Ms. Elmas.
Certainly, the last item too relates to medical cannabis, and again, that's still being strictly regulated by the federal government, and so that is separate from the use of recreational cannabis. So cannabis retail outlets. Municipal government will have a one-time opportunity to opt out of cannabis retail in their communities. There is no time period for a local municipality to opt back in by a resolution. If the opt-out is reversed by a municipal government, that decision will be final. This opt-out period for municipal councils means by January the 22nd, 2019, council must decide by that time frame if they wish to opt out on allowing retail outlets within the town of Collingwood. The resolution then gets sent to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario because they will be the licensing authority for all private cannabis retail outlets within the province, and they will be keeping the list of communities that have opted out of hosting the retail cannabis outlets, and operators will not be able to propose a store location or locations in those communities within certain parameters that are established. For example, retail outlets, it'll be up to the government and the AGCO to set the parameters around how the distance and setbacks from schools and other institutions or areas that they have concerns about. The Alcohol and Gaming Commission will also provide municipal governments with the opportunity to be notified whenever these outlets are being established within communities, and will be provided with a 15-day notification period of a proposed store site so to receive public input and hear concerns from local communities. So obviously, this timeframe is a big concern for a lot of municipalities, because within 15 days, there could possibly be no council meeting within that timeframe. So we'll need to establish what that notification period looks like and how decisions are going to be, or input from the communities to be received, and how municipalities will be able to respond within that notification period with any sort of due diligent comments back to the AGCO before license is actually granted. So public engagement for retail cannabis outlets, council cannot change their mind if they opt out, if they do not pass a resolution before this deadline. And municipalities that have opted out always retain the right to opt back in and permit cannabis retail outlets within their jurisdiction. So this is the recommendation that we're looking at and proposing council to consider this evening. The council directs staff to undertake a public engagement consultation component on whether retail cannabis outlets should be permitted within the town of Collingwood, and all this public information that we gather during from the time we commence, which will be in the very near future, will be provided to the new council to make a decision before the deadline. So again, council could decide at that time, after they receive all this information, that they're still not comfortable in making a detailed, competent, diligent, reviewed decision. They could decide to opt out for the time being while they continue to undertake further public consultation, because once you opt in, you can never opt back out. And obviously the reason for that is if you allow businesses to commence the process and they establish their businesses and undertake the business plans and whatnot, and then they're told that they can no longer do that, would not be very good. We wouldn't be very good business partners. Our next slide, enforcement. So within the enforcement, police will enforce road safety, illegal storefronts, and other components of the cannabis legislation. Funding is provided for drug recognition and sobriety testing, so this has already been happening with the OPP. However, there is concerns that the required training, I think they've completed training for approximately 2,000 officers at this point, and this is a significant requirement for any sort of enforcement, especially roadside or in public places. So that money has been received from the province. The health units will be able to enforce the smoke-free Ontario rules, including cannabis use and enforcement. Again, this is a little concerning for the town of Collingwood. We do have, the health unit has a tobacco enforcement officer, and that's one tobacco enforcement officer that attends our municipality very infrequently. So that is a bit of a concern. Regardless, in this new Bill 36 that's being presented, councils will have the ability to request and minister in writing for local bylaw enforcement officers to enforce the act. So again, this is something that councils will be able to have, but obviously you have to treat with a little bit of concern, because you don't want your municipal property taxes having to go up because the health unit under provincial mandate is unable to fund any sort of enforcement initiatives. So this is something when we get to the end that is going to be very significant in our monitoring process. Again, municipalities that have stricter tobacco use bylaws may be responsible for the enforcement of additional areas if approved and granted by the minister. And again, this is the information session that's being proposed at the Leisure Time Club to hear a little bit more about the health unit's enforcement on the use and consumption of tobacco. Will be provided at that meeting. The next slide that they're recommending that we touch upon within council's consideration that in fact impacts municipalities is areas within signage, promotion, and sponsorship, and the rules for that. So I'll have Martin speak to this section.
Mr. Ridlow.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Thank you, Sarah. The Cannabis Act ultimately controls advertising and sponsorship. Further rules are set forth by Tobacco and Vaping Products Act of 2008, I believe. So advertising of municipal assets such as transit ads, billboards, and street furniture are left to municipalities to consider within the context of these two acts. consistent with staff report CAO 2017-04, which concluded minimal financial benefits from advertising on municipal assets, it is recommended to ban cannabis related advertising, promotion, or sponsorship in or on any municipality owned, leased, or rented property or facility.
And if I may, Director Culver, if you have any comments on the advertising within your rec facilities and sponsorship of your municipal events. I believe this recommendation regarding the banning of the cannabis-related advertising as well has been a recommendation of AMO. So I don't know if Director Culver wants to briefly address that.
Thank you, through your worship. So obviously, council's aware that PRC is a health-based department within the community, and so as such, anything that would potentially be seen as contrary to that effort would be a concern. We currently have a prohibition against, a policy prohibition against advertising alcohol or tobacco inside of recreation facilities, given that cannabis would be following the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. That would fall exactly in line with that prohibition as well. So elevating this to a stronger policy would not be anything we would be concerned about or against at all.
Thank you. And our next slide, if I may, this is respect to the authority to regulate cannabis retail outlets within our municipality, and maybe if I'll ask our Director of Planning and Building Services to speak to this slide.
Sure. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our current zoning bylaw defines retail commercial establishments. And it's my understanding that the proposed legislation really would not permit us to do and treat cannabis retailers any different than any other retail use. Our definition of a retail commercial establishment is a building or part of a building used for the purpose of selling or offering for sale goods or services on an item-by-item basis directly to the public, and the incidental storage of those goods in limited quantities sufficient only to service such a store. It is not to include a department store, a food supermarket, a home and auto supply store, that's a Canadian Tire, a home center, a warehouse membership club, a motor vehicle dealership, recreational vehicle sales, light equipment sales, and a retail outlet for the sale of alcoholic beverages. You will note in your report that we have indicated a map showing where in this community we do currently permit general retail. It's our view at the moment, based on what knowledge we have of the current proposed legislation, that will be where any cannabis store would need to be located. But any further restrictions from where these stores may or may not be will really unfold over time as we get more information from the ministry and the bill. We have more information about the bill and some clarity. Thank you.
So to supplement Director Farrer's comments on this, currently we don't have a detailed business licensing practice. So again, as indicated in here, same as the impacts on the Planning Act, that you can't distinguish between different retail outlets. It's the same for the business licensing component. So if we don't license retail businesses right now, then we can't license cannabis separately or independently. So I think that's a key component too that we need to keep in mind. The second last slide here is regarding the monitoring and the provincial funding. So I'll touch on the funding first. The provincial funding commitment is the sum of $40 million to support local services and municipal government. This $40 million is from Ontario's portion of the federal tax on cannabis, with a 50-50 split, provincial municipal split, if Ontario's revenues exceed $100 million in the first 2 years. So this commitment is $40 million over 2 years to municipal governments, with at least $10,000 for each municipal government, with $5,000 to be distributed to all municipalities as soon as possible, with another $5,000 to be distributed in 2019. for municipal governments that will allow the retail outlet stores. Additional funding will be distributed on a per household basis. So this is an incentive for municipalities that provide the opportunity to have retail outlets within your community. They'll provide additional funding. And again, these are the implications in the monitoring that we're expecting over the next 2 years. So obviously the OPP calls and responses is going to be quite capital in this entire discussion, because our OPP component of our budget is one of the most significant pieces within our budget. And we know now that the billing model is based on a call for service basis is how we're billed for the municipality. We'll also have to manage and have monitoring of the understanding of the nuisance complaints that we receive as we adjust to this legalization. Response to the public consumption complaints instead of the police personnel or even the health unit tobacco enforcement officer. The Provincial Offences Act, prosecutions now under the POA, in which a charge regarding a cannabis fine would be before the Provincial Offences Court, and the revenue from these offences does remain with municipal governments. We'll have to determine if more regulatory bylaws should be considered, i.e. property standards, tobacco/cannabis use, consumption. And again, to touch on that, for example, if municipalities decide to do a property standard type regulation for the growth of plants in a backyard. So if a bylaw officer gets a call that they believe that somebody is contravening that component of the act, that the municipal bylaw officer can actually enter upon their property, assess to see if there's more than 4 plants that are permitted, and then issue the appropriate orders to remedy. So that's something that municipalities will have to consider as well. Obviously, as Melissa has touched upon, the workplace health and safety concerns and other emergency response calls, such as responses that paramedics and the fire services will have to attend to. So again, the recommendations that we're looking at council to consider this evening are on our next slide. There are these 3 components: that council direct staff to undertake the public consultation to seek input regarding allowing retail cannabis outlets in the town of Collingwood, that cannabis advertising, promotion, and sponsorship be prohibited in or on any town-owned, leased, or rented property or facility until the matter can be further reviewed in any further advertising or sponsorship policies, and that council direct staff to monitor the costs associated with the legalization of cannabis over the next 2 years and provide feedback to council during the annual budget deliberations or earlier as may be required. So again, this is a significant piece of legislation with a lot of unknowns, especially without having Bill 36 actually enacted at this point. But these are the recommendations that we're wanting council to consider for the time being.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and I'm sure council have questions. Even up to just less than 5 minutes ago, AMO has sent out more information and more questions regarding the whole subject matter. So I'll look, Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Sarah. Sarah, are we at liberty to introduce a policy that would be similar to alcohol consumption in public places? Or are we restricted to that? Because it strikes me that the use of cannabis in public spaces or in spaces other than public spaces in the community will be a really sore point with many people. And it doesn't seem to me that alcohol and cannabis differ that much in their use outside the home or in a regulated, licensed environment.
Certainly, through your worship to Councillor Lloyd, I believe this is something that we're going to have to look at. We were, quite frankly, 2 weeks ago having received this new piece of legislation saying that they're comparing cannabis use to tobacco use rather than cannabis to alcohol, was completely kind of took us by shock and surprise. So I think that's something that we'll have to closely monitor with PRC, because they actually are responsible for our alcohol policy in our facilities. But if that's something that we need to tighten up and we have the ability to, that'd be probably one of the first things that we bring to council to make the decision on.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Doherty. I'm just going to go around the table. No, I have no questions. Thank you. Councillor Ecclestone.
Not this time.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper, and through you to Sarah. An excellent report and presentation. very much a fluid situation, and you alluded to that right off the get-go with what you said. And I believe that the recommendations in here are pointing us in the right direction as per the regulation that you understand right now. And you're heavily involved with all the other stakeholders who are involved, and that includes, I think the mayor was updating me, that the county even has a committee that they put in place to work on.
That was committee of the whole. It was turned down at council for reasons I'll
Oh,
get
okay,
into.
okay, you can laugh at it. And so I appreciate the information to date and recognize that it's still, as I said, a fluid situation, so thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Cooper. Through you, Sarah. Sarah, good report, specifically, I think, because the whole landscape has been changing so dramatically since the election. I think the recommendations you've made are solid, and we'll be supporting them. But the whole situation, I think, is very concerning from the municipal perspective. I actually was under the impression that each municipality would get $10,000 per year over this year and next year to cover the costs of enforcement, but I think you're telling me it's 5 now. And I think the level of burden on our municipal resources is going to be a lot higher than perhaps we've anticipated. Just as something simple, if you have a triplex and you've got people that are allowed to grow 4 plants per unit, that's 12 plants in the house, and at what point do you get into building code issues with mold? And how do you regulate that? And if you've got a problem with mold, it's going to destroy the value of the landlord's property. So, and then getting involved in that from our municipal perspective, it's going to be our building inspectors that could be involved, and I just think it cascades out from there. So the $5,000 per year is, I think, woefully inadequate. It's not even going to scratch the surface. And then the idea of the incentivizing municipalities to have private sales when the areas and the density of those stores is really beyond our control, it would sound like. So I think there's going to be challenges as this thing unfolds, and there could be large municipal implications. I think from a larger regional perspective, although we don't ship any garbage across the border, I understand a number of regions do. And if you ship across any garbage that has cannabis plants or stuff in it, could get your entire contract canceled because they don't allow us to ship drugs across the border. So I think there's larger implications that really haven't been thought through, and hopefully we'll be able to navigate it. But I appreciate the report and the recommendations, and I'll be supporting those, and it's going to be a bit of a ride as this thing unfolds.
Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I have a lot of major concerns about the whole process, but just at this point, if I could just get clarification, perhaps, Sarah, it was a great report, thank you. If the municipality was to opt in to having an outlet, is it limited to 1, or is there no limit then on the number that you can have?
There would be no limit.
Thank you very much.
It will be up to the AGCO to identify any sort of density concerns with retail outlet, but right now they're saying that there wouldn't be a limit imposed unless something very significant arises, and that would have to be addressed.
Yeah, I just asked that question, not that I want them, but thank you.
I can, if I may, also, just to ensure council is aware, both through the clerk's office and through the building and planning departments have been contacted by a number of potential interested business ventures looking at undertaking a retail establishment in Collingwood. So it will be something that council will have to seriously consider before the time frame comes. That's why we want to do this consultation piece.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper, and through to Sarah. Thank you very much, Sarah, for all the information. I'm just confirming that the ban on promotion, etc., on our facilities would not exclude or preclude us doing public education in terms of the message we need to get out to our residents.
Absolutely not. And again, we're looking at also partnering with the OPP whenever we're doing some of the consultation pieces. I've contacted the inspector and she's indicated if there's any assistance that they can provide to the public too, if there's any questions when people come out about the use versus the retail component that she would address. But regardless, we would still provide any sort of promotion for educational purposes only, yeah. Yes.
All right, and then the other thing that you brought to mind when you were mentioning about the revenues coming down from the province, typically in our other grant programs, the county is considered a municipality, so their cut comes out before it even gets to Collingwood. Is that going to be the same with this funding? Is the county going to have an amount they take out of that?
So far in these draft pieces of legislation, they haven't differentiated between upper and lower tier municipalities, but if it's based on similar funding models, that most likely will be the case.
Okay, and I think the other questions answered the ones I had, so thanks.
Councillor Madigan.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. I have a few concerns as well, as we all do and we all should. You were mentioning, Ms. Elvis, that the bylaw officers would be able to go in complaint driven. I'm assuming that they're gonna need special training, and if so, is the province gonna be giving said training to officers at no cost to the community?
So through your worship and to Councillor Madigan, a bylaw officer would not be permitted to do any enforcement under the act right now unless municipal council requested in writing by a resolution permission from the minister to allow the municipality to undertake any sort of enforcement. So for the time being, they would not be able to respond to any sort of inquiry similar to that. But if council did authorize doing that, the health and safety of our officers is obviously paramount, and their training on drug recognition as well would have to be significantly enhanced.
So that, thank you, if I may, that being said, if we were to train our bylaw officers to go out and help the police enforce people breaking the law, would that revenue stay within the town of Collingwood for any offenses?
Yes, yeah, any sort of POA revenues that are received, come back to the municipality as well. But that's something that's gonna be very important when we're monitoring the calls to see how many calls that the OPP are doing versus how many nuisance calls and calls that are coming to the town first, and whether they have to redirect it to the OPP. And then, so we have a better understanding when we are negotiating our OPP contract, what that implication means, and is it better to actually have more bylaw officers trained versus paying an OPP officer to undertake certain tasks? That'll be something that'll be very important moving forward.
So one last question, if I may. October 17th will bring a lot of excitement to certain people within Ontario, and it's no surprise to me that people want to be in the vacation and tourism spot in Ontario. I brought up at AMO a couple of years ago, I have a fear, and I just want to know if you've heard anything about this. So we have testing for alcohol, and we have testing for cannabis.
Correct.
But there is no combined testing. So you can be fine with alcohol, have a beer, and you can be fine with marijuana, cigarette, but combined you're impaired. Has there been any
That is, sorry, through
Go
your
ahead,
worship,
Sarah.
Councillor Madigan, that's actually part of the OPP's drug expert recognition training that they're doing, is looking at doing a combined, so that would also include the urine screening, so if they feel that there is a combination, so there is 2 different tests that they would have to do in the roadside. They can do a roadside breathalyzer test, and they can do a roadside cannabis test. So that is an oral swab in their mouth, and basically that testing only shows positive or negative use of cannabis. And then from there, if it shows that it's positive, then they would have to be transferred to another officer at the detachment that has this drug recognition test. They go through another significant number of physical tests, and then if the officer can determine at that point that the person is impaired, either by drugs or by a combination of alcohol and drugs, they can charge the individual at that point. If there's any sort of concern, that's when they would send them to the hospital or a health center that they've had agreed upon for doing a urine screening sample.
Okay, and last question, I promise. So in the pharmaceutical world, manufacturers are not allowed to be the end seller. And we've all had questions and inquiries on how we feel about this. Has that been a discussion? So right now in the pharmaceutical world, if you are a manufacturer, you must find a reseller that sells for you. You cannot sell. So would one of our local plants that grows this, would they have the opportunity to open a retail establishment?
So medical cannabis operations are completely federally regulated, and the Ontario retail outlet component is going to be completely provincially regulated. So I'm not, I would have to double check,
Okay.
but I think they are still two separate pieces that the manufacturer would have to provide to an approved retail outlet, and I can't confirm whether
Okay,
they
no,
could be the same owner.
But hopefully within the report that we receive. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just also have great concerns. However, having attended an HR session at AMO this August, how it looped around to cannabis in the workplace when I wasn't sure. I was surprised that that was the topic of discussion, but not surprised. I do have some concerns over the Smoke-Free Ontario Act and having some stricter rules than that are in place now in the going forward in the smoking of whatever. Also concerns of financial impact, as you've mentioned, to the bylaw enforcement. Huge financial impacts of probably having to enhance the bylaw department, not only in training but in people, having more people as well. Public engagement, the 15-day notification, that's kind of almost not attainable when you look at the process of things. So I do certainly support what staff is recommending. I think it'll be helpful to move forward with a decision in January that has to be made by a new council. And just on the note of county, so it was committee of the whole that one of the mayor's, county councillors had brought forward a motion that the county actually and others need to discuss the cannabis legislation. However, it was under a lot of discussion, and various municipalities within the Simcoe County, some have bylaw enforcement, some don't. Some, they have various police services boards, some municipal, some OPP, but different detachments. So a lot of variations of enforcement, and it was felt at this point in time to have the county step away from it at this point in time. Okay, thank you very much, Sarah, and to Martin and Dean and Nancy, thank you very much for putting that very thorough report together. Who'd have thought? There is a motion somewhere. Oh, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Doherty. Be it resolved, the staff report C 2018-18 be hereby received and the recommendations herein be approved. 1, that council directs staff to undertake public consultation to seek input regarding allowing retail cannabis outlets in the town of Collingwood. 2, and the cannabis advertising, promotion, or sponsorship be prohibited in or on any town-owned, leased, or rented property or facility until the matter can be further reviewed in an advertising sponsorship policy. And 3, and the council directs staff to monitor costs associated with the legalization of cannabis over the next 2 years and provide any feedback to council during the annual budget deliberations or earlier as may be required.
We've had a lot of discussion for this, so I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next, we have P 2018-13, designation of Victoria Annex. Who would have that staff report?
I have that, Mayor Cooper.
And Councillor Lloyd has left the chambers. Councillor Madigan.
Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Saunderson. Be it resolved that council receive staff report P 2018-13 and initialize the process of designating 400 Maple Street, Victoria Annex, under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act by directing staff to issue a notice of intention to designate.
Ms. Farrer.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper, and I believe everyone knows where this property is, so I don't know whether we need to bring up the map, but I would like to make council aware that this is the first step in a process. The notice of intention would be published in the paper, and it would be served on the owner. And then there is at least 30 days in which the owner and the town would have there would be the possibility of people filing objections to the proposed designation. And then it would come back to council for council to make a decision, and then ultimately for council to pass a bylaw designating the property. So I just did want to indicate to everyone that this is a process. It's an initial step in a process, but obviously at this point in time, the balance of the process will be undertaken by the next council. I do believe, Krista, it's hard to see, but there is that is the chart that shows the various steps that need to be undertaken in order for the property to be designated.
Thank you very much. Require an HI if they were to do some upgrades on their homes?
Well, and it really depends what's happening with the properties in the vicinity. What is likely to happen is that we would be designating the school property, the entire property at this point, and then at a later date, we would actually be de-designating the surrounding properties, which are likely to be new structures. So we all anticipate that there will be a number of new homes that will be built around the old structure. I believe it's council's intent, and it certainly is staff's view, that it's the old building in the middle that we want designated, not any of the new homes that may ultimately be built around the outside of the old structure. And certainly it really depends on and from there it depends on the nature of the application, whether anyone would or would not have to do an HIA. It really would depend on what they were doing with their property and what, the magnitude of what was proposed.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper. Through you to Nancy. Nancy, in the process to de-designate then the balance of the property, at that point in time, would it go through the same notice, and could people object and argue that it should stay in the historic designation?
Ms. Fair?
Yes, through Mayor Cooper to Deputy Mayor Saunderson. I guess they would have the possibility of objecting. This is the process that we kind of went through when we were dealing with, I'll call it the former Connaught School, and because we created 4 single detached lots around the school, and at one point the whole property was designated, and then we de-designated, for lack of a better term, the surrounding properties, and there wasn't an issue in that case.
And as a follow-up,
go ahead.
Thank you, Nancy. In the interim time between the notice being served, is the owner allowed to do work like replace the roof, which I understand is in urgent need of replacement? So is this going to at all affect their ability to do immediate work on it while this application is outstanding?
Ms. Fair?
Yes, through Mayor Cooper to Deputy Mayor Saunderson, I think the town would be incredibly happy if the new owner replaced the roof in the interim, because certainly that is a key ingredient at this point that is in desperate need of being replaced. So we would be more than happy to work with the owner and ensure that gets done.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank
you. Okay, I'll call the vote then. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And here. And at this point in time with motions, 12.1, Education Development Charge Background Study, and the motion, I will rescind the chair for that motion and pass it on to Deputy.
All right, thank you very much. Someone have this one? pass it over then to Councillor Fryer to introduce the motion.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ecclestone. Be it resolved, whereas the Education Development Charge Background Study 2018 now incorporates the August 16th, 2018 addendum that proposes an area-specific methodology, and whereas Council believes that the proposed area-specific methodology is a more accurate and equitable approach to the development charge philosophy of having growth pay for growth, and whereas the rate now proposed for the town of Collingwood reflect a much smaller increase than previously proposed, therefore be it resolved that the town of Collingwood Council supports the area-specific education development charge methodology and proposed fee structure.
Thank you. Before I go around the table, maybe I'll just turn to the Treasurer, Marjorie Leonard. Marjorie, can you just give us an update? The last time we talked about this education development charge, I think it was upwards in about 50%. So where are we now, and how does the motion affect this?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, this will bring, in terms of the Simcoe County District School Board, the proposed charge was $3,500, $3,578 I think it was. This will decrease it down to $1,374, I want to say, and the separate school fee was I don't have that one, but it brings it down to $488, which is about half of where it was going to be as well. So I believe the total charge was going to be about $5,300 to start with, and now we're going to be down around the $2,000 mark, closer to that. So.
Good. Okay, then before we call the vote, any questions or comments around the table? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Saunderson. I'm through you to the Treasurer. I'm wondering if could you just remind us what they were before the increase?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, no, I'm sorry, I can't. I was only looking at the increase figure.
I just wondered how close we got to the original ones.
If I may, I don't have all the detail, but I recall that this initiates about a 15%, 16% change in rate for compared to 250% for the Simcoe County District School Board, and it was about a 9% change for the Catholic Board compared to 300% with the cross-jurisdictional.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Councillor Fryer.
Just as clarification for the public, this staff recommendation has come as after reviewing and as follow-up to our initial bylaw and motion that we approved back in July, requesting the school board to look into area specific. And it is also supported by the town of Midland, Tiny and Penetang. To my knowledge, I'm not sure of the others that are within the north designation, which includes Aurelia, Severn, Ramera, and Clearview. But certainly this will put us into the majority.
Yes, there was certainly a lot of talk at the county council about that, and I know a lot of municipalities had their concerns, as did we. So this is a good news story. So unless there's any other comments, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously.
Okay, moving right along. We have no bylaws this evening. Notices of motion. Don't want to carry anything on to the third, okay. County report, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to be brief. We've been here a long time today, and really just two items. The first, I don't think will come as news, at least not anymore. But in middle of September, the warden, Jerry Marshall, resigned as mayor of Penetanguishene and also as warden of the county. And so the county looked at its various options for either declaring the seat vacant and proceeding with an election, or just having the deputy warden, Terry Dowdle, mayor of Essa Township, step up. And so at the end of the day, council decided to have Deputy Warden Dowdle assume the responsibilities of warden and serve out the rest of the term, which ends November 30, 2018, and that during that time he be paid on the same basis that the warden was previously. And then I guess one last point, just to follow up on initiatives that were started during the term. Last October 1st, or this past October 1st, was National Seniors Day, and in the last year at County Council there's been a big push on for the age-friendly initiative, and just recently the county announced the Senior County Age-Friendly Senior Housing Grant Program, which makes monies available to to seniors in 16 municipalities of the county Simcoe. That does not include the separated cities of Barrie and Orillia, and they can apply to have get grant funds to make improvements to their homes so that they can stay in their homes in a safer manner and for a longer period of time. And so if people are interested in that, the requirements are that you be over 60 years of age and that you live in one of the 16 municipalities. And if you are interested in applying for a grant, there is a timeline. The deadline is November 30 of this year. And if you go, you can contact actually the county, the Simcoe Age Friendly Project lead at 705-726-9300, extension 1405. Or you can go on to the simcoe.ca website and look under the age-friendly initiatives. So this is something that the county's had in the works for quite a while, and it's now at least hitting the road in terms of its financing. There's $500,000 available, so if there are seniors out there who are eligible and want to do some improvements to their home, they have until November 30 of this year to apply. And that's it for me.
Questions? Okay, thank you very much, and we do have a county council meeting on October 23rd. Moving on then to old or deferred business. Okay, other business, and Sarah, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. Just going back to the staff report on sidewalks, do I need to add in my request for direction clarification on the signage of the downtown crossovers, or is that now incorporated into what we already voted on tonight?
I'll just get seek clarification. Mr. McDonald?
Certainly the policy's approved, and we will review those two crossings in conjunction with policy, or three actually.
Thank you very much. Okay,
thank you.
Other business. Okay, Sarah, you're up again. Hydro sale update. Clerk's department and staff have been very busy.
We've been extremely busy in the
And there's
middle
an
of
election
municipal
too.
election, if you can
Yes.
imagine. So actually, I'm providing this update tonight actually on behalf of our CAO, who again was unfortunately unable to attend this evening. So it's a brief outline regarding the background and critical timelines, the end of sale transaction, the outcome of the sale, and next steps. So the background includes that the town's RFP process, which began September 2016, solicited proposals from a wide range of potential interested parties with the view of maximizing the value of the town's remaining investment in Collingwood Power Stream Utility Services Corp. Given the terms of the unanimous shareholders agreement, that's the abbreviation USA, with PowerStream, the town had very limited options regarding how it would monetize its remaining 50% investment in the local electricity distribution company and must adhere to the requirements that were identified in that unanimous shareholders agreement. At a meeting held on January 30th, 2017, council decided to pursue the discussions with EPCOR, who had also proposed service arrangement to operate the town's water and wastewater system under the town's continued ownership. However, on April 25th, council decided not to consider the water and wastewater and the potential hydro sale negotiations with EPCOR, although we had hoped to have the process finalized the summer of 2017. Council was still advised that there was ongoing negotiation that had to take place, and that timeline extended actually into the fall. So on October 23rd, council did authorize the buy-sell options to give Electra PowerStream the first right of refusal to buy the utility, or alternatively, they could sell their remaining 50% share to the town, and in turn the town would sell the entire 100% investment to EPCOR. On August 30th, 2018, we did receive our OEB approval, approving this transaction to proceed. So what the end of sale transactions included: after the OEB approval was received, all final processes and agreements needed to be finalized and executed. Those included a number of lease agreements, lease agreement for 43 Sewer Road, municipal access agreement for hydro utilities on municipal property, final utility board matters including the board resignations, the EPCOR transition requirements, and all closing sale documents. I can confirm that documents were reviewed by both BLG and our municipal solicitors at Miller Thompson to their satisfaction. Again, with both legal advice received, they were not conflicted and only represented the town and no other party within this transaction. The final payments to Collingwood for its 50% holding in Cullis included the following. So we received approximately $11,800,000 for the purchase price from EPCOR. We received a dividend from Cullis in the amount of $1.3 million, and again, that was 50% dividend. The other 50% went to our 50% co-owner at the time, so it was PowerStream, now Electra. We were provided with $150,000 for development costs. The waterfront master plan is one of the community's biggest priorities as identified in the 2015 community-based strategic plan, and it is common for the purchase company to contribute to a local project, although it is not a requirement of the agreement, but that was an agreement that EPCOR agreed to in 2017 during our negotiations. The transaction also included, in this remaining 50% sale, unlike the previous 50% sale in 2012, that the vendor costs we would receive up to $200,000 towards legal expenses and costs associated with the transaction. And we also received $10,000 for vendor costs and expenses related to the Infrastructure Ontario loan transition, that it was within the former utility company and now is taken over by the town, with EPCOR paying the town payments until that loan has been paid back. So the total amount at this point is $13,580,487.71. So the outcome of the sale, again, this was also further reviewed whenever council authorized the transaction. So we do have a reliable quality service from a credible, experienced operator, a small distribution rate decrease for residential customers for 5 years. The difference between this decrease and postponing a cost of service rebasing will produce lower distribution rates than the status quo over the next 5 years. Over the longer term, distribution rates will increase under any ownership scenarios, whether we sell to EPCOR, whether we maintained the ownership. We would still be required to see increases during the life cycle of obviously inflation rates. Ratepayers will also see a local presence presence within the town. So the town's terms included the buyer leasing from the town the existing Collis facilities or to construct a new Collis office and operations center in Collingwood after 10 years to assure ratepayers and Collis employees about a continued local presence within the town of Collingwood. So that was part of the transaction outcomes that are in place and remain in place with the new owners. And now we're looking at the next steps. So there is a municipal advisory committee that was part of this scenario. The terms of reference included providing a forum for communication and continuing dialogue between EPCOR and the town to receive information on and provide input feedback on the provision of utility distribution services in the service territory with emphasis on matters such as quality of service, reliability, safety, presence in the community, growth, and other matters of particular concern to residents within the service territory. This advisory committee will function as the primary conduit to ensure regular and ongoing dialogue between the purchaser and after closing with the town of Collingwood. So again, in establishing the advisory committee, the vendor has the right to appoint up to 3 representatives to the advisory body. The purchaser, so EPCOR, has the right to appoint up to 3 senior officials as its representatives. The advisory committee will meet regularly, at least 4 times per year for the first 3 years following the closing date, then semi-annually thereafter unless the advisory committee is otherwise dissolved by agreement of both parties. So this is something that, again, that the new council will be required to undertake the appointments of this advisory committee. And again, the use of the proceeds will be determined by the new council through a public consultation component as we agreed upon by this council as well. So that is basically the next steps. If there's any questions, I can try to answer together with our treasurer.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elmas and Marjorie, and to Mike Switzer as well. A lot of work has gone into especially a wrap up at the end of a new agreement. And so you are to be commended, as well as Mr. Amin, who kept close tabs on things as well. So, council, questions? Councillor Edwards?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. If I may, one of the key things also was the retention of employees for the 2-year period, which I think was very important as part of that deal. The last couple of years, I know, have been very challenging and difficult times for the employees of Collis Power Stream. Any type of sale is very difficult for staff, and I think that to be complimented on their dedication to providing the reliable service that we've received over this time, and the expertise that they've put into this as well. They've been very professional through the whole thing, and I think that's important. And that's still a very important part of our town with that corp.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Mayor Cooper, and through you, I echo your compliments to staff. We mentioned it at the committee meeting. There was committee meetings to take care of and everything like that. The clerk's department work on this has been outstanding, and I agree as well with Collis. Again, the fact that this is coming to the table on October the 15th, extenuating circumstances, we would have loved to have had this information coming sooner, and I understand there still will be some more final adjustments still to take care of. Just get clarification of that through the clerk.
Certainly, the treasurer confirmed this evening that these numbers too don't have complete final adjustments associated with them, but if there's any sort of significant change to the 13.5 as reported on, obviously that'll be a publicly communicated communication regarding any sort of change in that amount.
Councillor Fryer.
I may thank you, Mayor Cooper, and just I wanted to take the opportunity to express my thanks to the municipal electric ratepayers for their investment in our municipal service dating back to 1908 when Collingwood Water and Light was first formed, and then for the last 25 years of those 110, the customer base has also included the former towns of Thornbury, Creemore and Stayner. There is no doubt the reason this council was able to negotiate a very good return on your investment is because of the Callis customers. I would have liked to see, I would have liked to seen more attempt to engage the public, especially during the transition period. Perhaps the advisory committee could have been in place. But EPCOR for certain is a highly regarded company, and the excellent staff and services for Callis are still in place. So I'm just saying to the public, if anyone has questions or concerns, they can contact them, and I'm certain they'll get a quick response. Just my own personal experience this week, I was trying to get into Customer Connect and was having some difficulty. I phoned them up, they navigated me to the proper spot, and everything was fine. So again, just as I said, I'd like to just express my thanks to the municipal electric ratepayers. The one question I had was, as per the agreements with EPCOR, when and how will the Callis records data be available to municipal resources as per the terms of the agreement?
Sorry, which documents are you referring to?
Mayor Cooper, just through you. I'm just referring to the agreement by EPCOR that Town of Collingwood would retain access to the historic records data for Callis.
That's something, sorry, I'll have to review and get the details too, and then I can report back to council.
Okay, and with Mr. Amin.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think also we would be remiss to not include the CFO, Ms. Shuttleworth from Callis Power Stream, as well as Ms. Pam Hogg and Larry Irwin. Wealth of knowledge for many years, and they've had to provide a lot of information to help make this happen as well. So thanks to them as well. So. Ms. Almas.
Just final closing remarks through your worship to members of council. There was 46 agreements that had to be finalized with the closing documents, so they were pretty significant. But I would also like to personally thank council for your faith and confidence in allowing me to be appointed to the Callis Power Stream board for the last 2 years, and thanks to the board for their confidence in having me as their co-chair for the last 2 years. It was a significant opportunity. It was significantly more work than I had originally anticipated, but I am very grateful for the opportunity to also work alongside Councillor Doherty as my colleague on the board. I appreciated that opportunity, and as well I would like to thank the Callis staff for their diligence and their ongoing commitment to the utility during this entire transition process. So thanks all around.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And that is on the town's website? Okay, yes it is. Who would have the motion to proceed in camera? Councillor Jeffrey.
Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Lloyd, whereas the in-camera meeting matters have been duly reviewed by staff and are in accordance with the closed meeting provisions of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. Be it resolved that this council proceeds in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land for town or local board purposes, item A, and the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose, that is item B, and the items for discussion are A, land acquisition, and B, judicial inquiry.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And there is a rise in report, which we will have, so stay tuned for that. And we'll stay here in the chambers and come back for a rise in report, as well as the confirmatory bylaw. So those of you watching at home, thank you very much. Good night, folks. And next meeting likely televised, won't be until January, I'm guessing, or perhaps December 3rd. So we're signing off. Thanks to my family for your support on the 21 years and 15 years of that with County Council. Thank you and good night.